Back in the beginnings of 2017, if you had asked me how I felt about Jordan Peele, I would have told you that I believe the man to be a comedic genius. There are far too many Peele-centric skits for me to count that make me fucking chortle. Ask me that same question today, and I'd assure you that he's a truly stunning filmmaker. In March of 17, I saw Get Out at the cinema, and it was instantaneously unfathomable to me how this picture could be an individual's directorial debut, given the unique and ultra-clear and strong vision. The flick presents this perpetually eerie and unsettling tone. I dig the strings-heavy musical score, and the cast, featuring at the time revelations Daniel Kaluuya and Allison Williams, does a really spectacular job. And I may be in the minority, but I believe 2019's Us to be, admittedly subjectively, a superior cinematic experience. The cinematography is impeccable, while Lupita Nyong'o's performances are bloody brilliant. I love the settings, the cool and creepy doppelganger concept, as well as the, spoilers, fun twist. Both of these pictures, to this day, remain somewhere within my top 70 films in history, so I'd been anticipating this third movie for quite some time now, as I was unfortunately unable to view it in theaters back in 2022. Finally, a few nights ago, I crossed Nope off of my to-watch list, and after having some time to mull it over, I can now confidently state that this is, in my opinion, the greatest of Mr. Peele's horror trilogy. Firstly, Nope is a technical marvel. The cinematography is outstanding. All of the otherworldly visuals are sensational and chillingly depicted, and our most prevalent location is so exceedingly vast, the seemingly endless sky containing practically infinite clouds, that the elusive flying ET feels forever present. This picture is simultaneously tight, focused, and beautifully paced, as well as quite unconventional. I'm mostly referring to the sporadically displayed single-word title cards, said word being the name of a living being, not of the human species. This simply worked for me. It distinguished the portions of the piece in an intriguing, stylized way. The goal, if you will, and sub-goals, is always clear, and the rules of this particular world are ultimately very well established, while each essential touchstone has some level of importance and or callback. Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer make up our magnificent main duo. These two form a great team of complete and utter opposites. While they both bear big hearts, OJ is more so reserved and withdrawn, whilst Emerald is just overflowing with personality. The revelation to me this time around was Mr. Steven Yeun, whom I somehow have managed not to see on the big or small screen until now. He is quietly layered in the integral role of Ricky Jupe Park. The man is perhaps the primary embodiment of this picture's primary theme, the magnetic nature of spectacle, no matter how horrific it may be, and society's desire to both capitalize on it and turn a blind eye to it. This character's tale is a really tragic one, as he is slave to the spectacle, a victim of the bad miracle. He made a living off of a pair of them. The first traumatized him, the second killed him. Michael Wincott and Brandon Perea round out our wonderful main cast, portraying the roles of Antlers and Angel respectively. Antlers is this pretentious, self-indulgent, and reputable cinematographer. He puts his life on the line for quote-unquote the shot, which is perfectly fitting to what this movie is really about. Angel is an effective comic relief character, essentially. He's organically humorous, and it thankfully doesn't feel out of place, and basically represents the sort of casual, gullible UFO follower and believer. I am partly referring to his brilliant references to that Ancient Aliens program, among others. Now, typically when I rate a given movie on a 0 to 10 scale, for example, I try to balance subjectivity and objectivity. I prefer to analyze and dissect why I specifically enjoy or don't enjoy a piece of media, and I suppose it's important to me to be able to distinguish when I dig a certain concept because of personal intrigue versus when my educated self is impressed by verging on irrefutable technical feats. I'd like to touch on some of Nope's components, which whet my subjective appetite and then some. Peele provided a trio of elements in particular: the UFO/AAP phenomenon, the relatively niche topic of domesticated chimps becoming understandably crazed, and the lore that is Hollywood history, even when entirely fictional. Without delving too far down this extraterrestrial rabbit hole, I'll simply say that this is a subject that I am quite well versed in regard to publicly published info. And so besides the fact that the abundance of alien activity here inherently captivated me, I also developed a bit of a cheeky smirk whenever I recognized a given buzzword or mention of an alleged incident with which I'm quite familiar. Funnily enough, whilst all of that flying saucer hubbub has always raised an eyebrow of mine, I haven't necessarily been drawn to it when depicted in film, but given my aforementioned familiarity with the general subject alongside its pop cultural effects, I really took notice of some expectation diversions that I found to be especially clever. Two in particular, both of them kind of connected. We've been trained to view an apparent flying saucer as a futuristic vehicle which contains travelers of a more intelligent species, so it was an unexpected creative turn when we learned that this UFO isn't an alien transportation device. Rather, it is a alien, an enormous shape-shifting being. This was a revelation that hadn't even remotely crossed my mind prior to my discovery of it. And I freaking adore the scene involving the apparent little green men. Relatively early on in the film, OJ goes to check up on the old barn, as you do, at which point he encounters these seemingly creepy creatures. That is before we learn that all of this was simply a prank performed by some little miscreants. Both of these elements essentially cancel out those pop culture fueled preconceived notions. In the ape department, there are a couple notable tales of quote unquote domesticated chimp freakouts, documentaries on which I have viewed intently, and there are some clear inspirations/homages depicted in regard to these real life incidents. And when a motion picture focuses, to some extent, on the film and or television industry, which is my jam, as it were, I very much appreciate a clear and thorough depiction of the history of said industry, again, even when completely conjured up, and what kind of projects and beings it has churned out. All of this only accentuating the immersion factor. When it comes to movies or television shows that involve a mysterious figure or dangerous but elusive monster of any kind, there's always a very subjective sweet spot when it comes to not only how much we learn about said entity, but how much is shown of it, and for how long. And concerning Nope, forget a sweet spot. This flick found my G-spot in that regard. Before we learn that our ship is not a ship, we largely see this thing stealthily traveling from afar, or its silhouette through a gray cloud. And when this fucker vacuums up a human, or a whole herd of them, I adore the fact that we only receive one rather disorienting angle of this creepy consumption. It's this sort of obscure shot within the intestine or throat of this big bastard. It's captured in such an effectively claustrophobic fashion. Essentially, my sole complaint surrounding this wonderfully eerie and atmospheric picture is the fact that I was unable to view this cinematic experience in the cinema. But at this point, all I can do is anticipate Mr. Peele's fourth directorial endeavor, and assure that I am seated in the back row on opening night.